In the shadows of ancient Rome's towering monuments and bustling marketplaces, there lived a class of men who fought not for land, politics, or religion, but for survival, spectacle, and the thin hope of glory. These were the gladiators, icons of violence, pawns of empire, and unwilling heroes of a bloodthirsty civilization. Their lives were forged in fire, shaped by the sword, and often ended in the roar of a crowd whose lust for carnage knew no end. But behind every clash in the arena lay a story of pain, power, and a desperate grasp for freedom. The journey into the brutal world of gladiators rarely began by choice. Most were slaves, captured in war, sold into bondage, or condemned by the courts. Others were criminals sentenced to die in the arena, thrown into a profession where a man's life expectancy was measured not in years, but in battles. And yet, not all were coerced. A small number of men, known as octorati, willingly became gladiators. Whether driven by debt, disgrace, or the seduction of fame, these free men signed away their liberty for the chance to fight. In doing so, they forfeited many rights and were branded with the same iron stigma as the slaves beside them. But some believed the risk was worth the reward. Once chosen or condemned, a gladiator began his new life at the ludus, the training school. These institutions were run by lanistae, former gladiators or ruthless businessmen who treated their fighters as valuable investments. Life in the ludus was rigid and brutal. Days were consumed by endless drills, footwork, weapon training, physical conditioning, and sparring. Gladiators trained with wooden swords, rudis, heavier than real blades, designed to strengthen their muscles and build endurance. Mistakes were punished harshly. The doctores, elite trainers, often retired fighters themselves, taught not just combat skills, but also stagecraft. A gladiator wasn't merely a killer, he was a performer. His purpose was to entertain. Each gladiator was assigned a specific fighting style and armor set, designed to create dramatic contrasts in the arena. A murmillo, for instance, fought with a heavy rectangular shield, scutum, a short sword, gladius, and a crested helmet that resembled a fish. His usual opponent was the retiarius, a lightly armored fighter wielding a trident and a net. The retiarius relied on speed and agility, darting around his heavily armored foe in a deadly dance. Other classes included the secutor, designed to chase down the retiarius, and the thraex, who used curved blades and small shields. These pairings weren't random. They were scripted to evoke drama, challenge, and visual appeal. Despite the harshness of their training, gladiators were paradoxically cared for with surprising attention. Their diet, though plain, was carefully calculated. They were often fed barley, beans, dried fruits, and ash-based supplements to build bulk and endurance. Their wounds were treated by trained medics, and their physical condition was closely monitored, not out of compassion, but profit. A dead gladiator was a loss of investment, unless he died in the arena, where his blood could still buy the lanista fame or favor. When fight day arrived, the gladiators marched through the streets toward the amphitheater, often the mighty Colosseum. Dressed in their armor, they were cheered or jeered by the crowds, their reputations preceding them. Inside the arena, the air was electric with anticipation. Tens of thousands of Romans filled the stone seats, from slaves to senators, all united by a thirst for blood. Gladiatorial games began with pageantry, music, parades, sometimes even comedic warm-ups. Then the real battles began. Not all gladiatorial combats ended in death. Contrary to modern myth, most bouts were not to the death, at least not initially. Gladiators were expensive to train and maintain, and skilled fighters were valuable commodities. A well-fought match could earn both men the crowd's applause and their survival. But death was never far. If a gladiator fell and could not fight on, the presiding official, often the emperor or a magistrate, would look to the crowd. The fate of the defeated rested in a simple gesture, the infamous thumbs. Though historians debate the exact meanings of pollis verso turned thumb, what mattered was this: the crowd loved blood, and mercy was not always good theater. For those who survived, there were rewards. Victorious gladiators earned prizes, money, gifts, perhaps even the chance to buy their freedom. A handful became celebrities, adored by the masses. Their names were chanted in the streets, etched into graffiti, and even featured in promotional posters painted on walls. Some were invited to elite parties, courted by noble women, and showered with admiration. Yet fame came at a cost. Each victory led only to another fight, and no matter how popular a gladiator became, one unlucky strike could end it all. In the barracks, camaraderie blossomed between fighters. These were men who had stared death in the face together, who bled and healed side by side. Bonds were forged through shared trauma. Rivalries, too, were inevitable, fueled by competition, pride, and the need to stand out. And sometimes these tensions exploded in the ring, turning performance into personal vendetta. Outside, the public speculated, bet, and gossiped about their favorite warriors, turning their lives into a twisted kind of celebrity culture. Some gladiators fought for years, becoming veterans revered even by their peers. Rarely, one earned the rudis, a wooden sword symbolizing manumission. This was the dream. Freedom bought not with coin, but with courage and skill. To receive the rudis was to reclaim one's life, to walk out of the arena not as property, but as a man. Yet even for freed gladiators, escape from the past was hard. Many had no homes to return to. Some became trainers, others faded into obscurity, and a few even returned to the arena voluntarily, unable to let go of the only life they knew. Yet for every gladiator who earned freedom, hundreds died in anonymity. Their bodies were carted away, buried in mass graves or burned, their names forgotten, their stories lost. They were the cost of Rome's grandeur, sacrificed to entertain an empire. And so, the life of a gladiator was a paradox, one of suffering and admiration, captivity and agency, death and eternal fame. They were both slaves and superstars, brutalized and exalted, hated and worshipped. In a society that celebrated conquest and spectacle, the gladiator stood as a living symbol of everything Rome prized: strength, courage, discipline, and the power to face death with defiance. For them, every moment in the arena was a gamble, every breath a borrowed blessing. They fought not just for survival, but to carve a legacy from the sand, one bloody step at a time.